CBDC problem, where you have the European Commission saying that they're going to issue, oh, it's just a digital currency. It's no different than what you've been using all along. That's a flat out lie. Of course it's different. And it's going to have restrictions for certain uses and for people in the future, and that you will not be able to use your money freely. That's not freedom. When you expend your energy and you store that energy in the form of money in order to use it later, that's freedom, as long as you can trust the money. But if you can't trust the money, then you can't trust the freedom.
And why does this all happen? Why do we have a government and a central bank that seems to relish being wrong and causing untold misery? Because whenever they make a mistake, they can print money to cover it. Everybody else who's not printing money for themselves has to work for a living. And if you work and you make a living and you have a family,
we all know as Bitcoiners that there is nothing that beats buying and holding Bitcoin in your own wallet and knowing the address and your keys yourself. There's nothing that trumps that. As long as you keep hold of those keys, you memorize them, whatever you need to do, that is the only way that you can ensure 100% that your Bitcoin won't disappear. Because in reality, if you have an ETF, it's still somewhat of a paper market in that you have counterparties. You have BlackRock that's actually holding it, and you have to trust that BlackRock is holding it and that their custodian, if they're not using self-custody, or if they don't have insurance on it through Lloyd's of London or whatever it is, that it is there for you. So there's always that question, always. And right. You'll never be 100% sure. But I can tell you this, Michelle, if you're an institution and you're staring down the career risk of buying and holding Bitcoin yourself in wallets that you've created with your internal process, that's going to be a much, much larger, taller hurdle to get over than just simply buying an ETF just like you would buy GLD. It's so much easier. It will bring in money from that world that it's just not available right now. If you're a registered investment advisor, you likely cannot do it for the base of your investors. Bitcoin is the exact opposite of a CBDC. And that's the real point of all of this, in that you've got fiat that's troubled, that we're seeing is troubled. You've got endless amounts of debt that are coming into the market that are making every single dollar currency out there, whether it's the yen or the euro or whatever it is, every sovereign that is printing their own money and issuing their own debt, their currencies are becoming less valuable. You've got that problem. Then you've got the CBDC problem, where you have the European Commission saying that they're going to issue, oh, it's just a digital currency. It's no different than what you've been using all along. That's a flat out lie. Of course it's different. And it's going to have restrictions for certain uses and for people in the future, and that you will not be able to use your money freely. That's not freedom. When you expend your energy and you store that energy in the form of money in order to use it later, that's freedom, as long as you can trust the money. But if you can't trust the money, then you can't trust the freedom. And I think that's the real crux of all of this. And that's the interesting part. And if Larry really believes that, and he really understands that, then BlackRock they're in the position to bring Bitcoin to a much wider audience, and that's the key to the whole ETF. I think Larry's change of tune and heart on the ETF and Bitcoin has to do with profits. Okay. I mean, that's just, as much as I wish it would, as much as I wish that he is a true believer and he understands that Bitcoin stands for freedom. I think it's more ironic that he said that at the same time that Christine was saying the other thing, because pushing CBDCs, because when you look at the landscape of of the major investors and the major businessmen of this nation, and you look at the Jamie Dimons of the world, and you look at the Warren Buffetts of the world, they're not looking at Bitcoin as something that they can profit off of. It's disruptive to their businesses. It's disruptive to the things they've been doing and the way they've made money for decades and decades. But Larry Fink sees a different path. He sees a path as BlackRock that he can create something that can benefit not just the market, but BlackRock in the form of large profits, because he sees pent-up demand. And that's really the big key here. He sees this pent-up demand for this product, and the market is ready for it and asking for it. Any way you shape it, any way you cut it, I'm super optimistic about the future of Bitcoin and investing in that ecosystem, because these products are coming to market. The demand is there. It will eventually tip over into a safe haven asset or just a completely separate asset class that's uncorrelated to the risk market. And so I am extremely optimistic about that. And I see this as a space that's going to grow rapidly and exponentially over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years. So BlackRock coming into it. One thing I want to say is that when people hear BlackRock and they hear that they have $10 trillion, they think that BlackRock is going to own $10 trillion of Bitcoin. Well, that's not, you know better. I know you do. But for the listeners, BlackRock being involved, it's a business for them.
Voters continuously reject, whether it's in Brexit, whether it's MAGA, whether it's Italy, whether it's, the total support here for Najib Bukele's re-election campaign. What they're saying is they're sick of these people who have ruled over the world, the elite institutions, the academics, the think tanks, all the media that presided over this disaster that left us so fragile. The plunging pound like that is a sign of fragility. It's a sign that it's all a mirage and it's all could disappear like that. So there was another tweet that happened, and that was with Safety Moose, who was pointing out that Paul Krugman, of course, Nobel economist, right? The sort of guy we're told over and over to listen to him because he's an expert, even though we, the people, could point to when he got it horribly, embarrassingly wrong about the internet, when he said the internet would just be a fad, it would be no more important than the facts. And then Safety Moose, he tweeted a reminder from just 2 days before the pound plunged. Just 2 days before, he tweeted, quoting Paul Krugman, he said, "I did invent the academic field." And he was referring to Paul Krugman's tweet. But back to sterling, pound sterling, the British pound, I'm supposed to know something about currency crisis. I did invent the academic field. And as far as I know, there are two ways a country with a floating exchange rate can have a currency crisis, neither of which seems to apply to the UK. So the experts said what happened coming into the beginning of this week, yesterday, Monday morning, was not supposed to happen because they could print money as they wish.
Right. This is a recurring theme. Paul Krugman we've visited his career many times. He's been dead wrong. Always. He espouses a Keynesian economics model that has as much a failure as communism or socialism has been a failure. And all the academics, the Steve Henke, I think his name is, he's been spouting falsehoods now for years. And why does this all happen? Why do we have a government and a central bank that seems to relish being wrong and causing untold misery? Because whenever they make a mistake, they can print money to cover it. Everybody else who's not printing money for themselves has to work for a living. And if you work and you make a living and you have a family, and then you watch politicians, you watch Paul Krugman, you watch Steve Henke, you watch the Jay Powell, you watch the Bank of England. I mean, England's not even, it's not even anywhere near a democracy. It's an outright autocratic supreme ruled by a monarch. They just print money. That's all they do. When they make a mistake, they print money to cover the mistake. And that's what Bitcoin fixes.